Got Your Back Podstream is brought to you by Kinprint. For all your company's promotional needs, they do it all. Apparel, promotional products using the highest quality brands. They do logo design, signage, and printing. Kinprint will promote your brand with excellence. Visit kinprint.ca. Happy Friday morning to you folks, and welcome to Got Your Back Season 3, Episode number 2. Got a doozy of a podcast today. I'm excited about today's podcast. I'm going to talk a little bit of Leon Draisaitl. He addressed the media yesterday after the captain's skates. Not sure if you heard what he had to say, but, well, compared to what he said at the end of last season, definitely sounded a lot more upbeat. We're going to check in with Cory Sarich out of Calgary, talk a little bit about the Calgary Flames, how they're looking this year. And then, of course, in his signature segment, which, by the way, we might be renaming, Struddy Says for now, but Struddy gets a little personal with a couple's story. Yes, a couple's story on today's podcast, which, of course, is brought to you by our great friends over at Sherwood Buick GMC. They're the proud new title sponsor of the podcast this season. We're thrilled to have them on as title sponsors. I've actually bought a vehicle over at Sherwood Buick GMC, and everything we're going to tell you on the podcast this year about them is true. They make the buying process easy. They make the financing process easy. The vehicles they have there are fantastic. I've got the Sierra 1500. It's an absolute beauty of a truck, and they've got stock, right? A lot of places you go, they have trouble getting vehicles in. Not the case with Sherwood Buick GMC, the big, beautiful dealership just off Baseline Road on the way into Sherwood Park. Go see Phil and the crew over at Sherwood Buick GMC. And again, if you're joining us for the first time this year, or you missed our announcements, a new face on Got Your Back. Rob Brown joins Struddy and I. Gentlemen, good morning. Now, Brownie, that is not your home set. You are somewhere else right now. So I feel like you're at a hotel. You've either been kicked out or there's a cabin or what's going on, buddy?
Yeah, my wife banished me again. We do this monthly. So, no, I'm out at my lake. I need couples therapy, Struds. I'm coming to you later today. No, I'm at my lake. We have to close up, get the boat out and all that. So it's probably a 12 to 14 hour thing that I push into 5 days. So today's day 5. I'm going home today to see my family. But yeah, I'm out at my lake right now. So out just south of Cranbrook, BC.
Husband and dad of the year, eh? Just giving back all the time.
I'm going to stop at
Monday. I'll see you Saturday.
I'm going to stop at 7-Eleven on the way home, pick up some presents for the family.
Just try and make good with everybody. I pull the boat out too, Brownie. I don't know how you are with that stuff, but I've kind of I've taken over having to put a boat in and out of the water every year. And this last year was the first year where I had to kind of really truly oversee it on my own. And so when we launched the boat in Cold Lake on day number 1, first of all, I did something wrong backing it up. I think I forgot to remove the safety chain. All I know is when the boat was supposed to be going backwards, it wasn't. And then something snapped and then it went backwards. So that was jarring for me. And then we got halfway to where we were going to take it around to the beachfront property. And I had my stepson Carter and my nephew Max in there with me. And they're like, and I turned around and there was smoke billowing out from underneath one of the seats. So now, so I shut the engine down and I lift the thing up. Smoke goes pouring out everywhere. We have smoke pouring out and we had water pouring in. So for like a minute and a half, I thought I was literally going to sink the boat the first day that I had it in the water where I was actually overseeing everything. Now, as it turns out, guys, it's silly little things like butterfly screws, FYI. When you're doing up a butterfly screw with the little butterfly handle, it's actually done up when it's like further out on the screw and it's open when it's further in. I didn't realize that. So I was running around. There was no water being held in the motor.
Well, see, my friends know me well enough that they don't allow me to put my boat in or out. So,
Yeah.
and I might have to visit our friends to get a new truck because my truck isn't strong enough to pull my boat in or out. So they pull it out
Ooh.
for me. They pull it in, put it in for me.
Phil.
Yeah, exactly.
Rob
Hint,
Brown's
hint.
coming in, Phil. Rob Brown or Phil Pocklington over at Sherwood Buick GMC. I'll set you up with them, and they'll treat you great. Struddy, we got to get you over there too.
I do. I don't have a boat to pull though.
Oh, you know who can help you with that is our good buddies at Martin Motorsports, one of our other new sponsors on the podcast this year.
Oh,
Hey,
you could go see my buddy Bubba at Martin Motorsports. He'll look after you.
Okay, Bubba.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
Bubba will
good.
take
Yeah,
care of you.
I was chatting with Chris over at Martin Motorsports, and he was chatting a little bit about maybe getting us out in some of those side-by-side struds, get us ripping around a little bit, experience some of that stuff. He sent me a few pictures of what he has in mind for us. I'm going to screw it up. I'm not even going to try and do the product promotion because I don't know what it was that he sent me. All I know is it looked like a Mercedes SUV, this side-by-side that he sent me.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. I can't wait to get out there, test it out.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. Okay, on the podcast today, guys, we're going to dive in. We're going to talk a little bit about Leon Draisaitl because he addressed the media yesterday after the captain's skate. Corey Sarich in the second segment. Can't wait to have Corey on. Great guy. And frankly, a guy that we don't hear enough from because he was an excellent player, but he's a great analyst as well. So looking forward to having him in the second segment. And then Struddy Says as well. And also, we're going to take some comments from you on the stream. So Zuby will be collecting comments throughout the podcast today. If you have questions, you want to throw them at us, by all means, send them in right away. We're streaming on Twitter and on YouTube. And Zuby will collect those, and we'll do a segment at the end. Ask us anything of the podcast today. But let's get to the breakdown, guys. Brought to you by one of our newest partners, Adrenaline Diesel, where they specialize in heavy-duty commercial truck and trailer repair. They do performance tuning, parts, and sales. Quite the operation. I went down and visited them. They've got 7 gigantic bays, and there's not much that they can't get done for you if you're in need. Marty and his crew have a high standard. They are perfectionists. They'll leave your truck in great shape like it is right out of the factory. Welcome to Adrenaline Diesel here to the podcast. Guys, I'm going to play a clip for you. This was Leon Draisaitl last season as it came to a sputtering finish.
I got to take a lot of ownership myself. I wasn't good tonight, so yeah.
Yeah. One assist in the final 4 games of the series for Leon Draisaitl. That media availability, I've never seen him like that, Brownie. How would, for an offensive player, a guy who's front lines of trying to put up the goals and the points you need to win a series like that, you go dry for a few games in those huge moments. How do you think that affected Leon Draisaitl and it would have sat with him over a summer?
Well, I think that they saw how close they were. And Vegas goes on and wins the Stanley Cup. They were winning, was it game 5? The Oilers are up in the game and have a chance to win the series. And it's on the back of Connor and Leon when this team is driven by those two. And if Leon doesn't feel that he was at his best or didn't produce at the top like he's capable of, it was a close series. If Leon plays in the final 4 games and produces like he did in the earlier games in the playoffs, the Oilers win that series. So it would have weighed on him all summer long. I know that both Connor and Leon take everything personal when it comes to team play. And that's why you see them all here right now in the captain skates. Mm-hmm. This is an expectation of winning the Stanley Cup this year. That's the only expectation this group has. He's a much more positive frame of mind right now, but the feeling that he had after that last game will be used as motivation throughout the season.
Yeah, especially when you're used to doing it all year. You know, what do you have, 55 goals last year, 100 and whatever number of points? You think they're going to be able to go into any situation and contribute in a meaningful way. And when you don't do that, you deliver, you feel like you've let your teammates down. And I, you know, if you haven't ever been on a team, doesn't matter if it was the highest level of sport or your men's or ladies league volleyball team that plays Friday nights. If you feel like you didn't bring it for your teammates, it's really hard. Now your teammates aren't as hard on you as you are usually, but I think that, as Brownie said, be a really long summer feeling like you're the guy that let them down when they needed you the most.
Oh, sorry. Bit of a technical issue. You guys still got me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Something on my window kind of popped up awkwardly here, so I thought maybe I had dumped out. Want to play a clip from Leon Draisaitl. One of the things that he talked about yesterday. Remember, like, it was the cup or bust quote at the end of last season that I think kind of caught people's attention. And really it is cup or bust in a lot of ways for this team. The one thing about the saying cup or bust, though, is what does the bust part mean, right? If you really think about that saying and really analyze it, it's like we're winning it all or bust. Like, what happens? Things come apart, things explode. What happens? And he was asked by Mark Spector about that cup or bust comment. And I wouldn't say that he backed off of it, guys, but it seemed like perhaps he rethought it. Maybe the context of it a little.
Last game was cup or bust next year. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting quote. I mean, obviously, you know. Thank you. Next question. No, but it's obviously we want to win. I mean, you guys write about it every day. We say it almost every day. You know, we want to win a Stanley Cup here. There's no doubt about that. I think we have to be careful in putting too much pressure on ourselves in that way. And there's 30 other teams that are trying to, do the same thing that we're doing. We're not the only team here. So there's going to be some ups and downs, but I think we got the group in here to do it.
Sounds like you backed off the or bust part a little bit, Struds. It's not cup or bust. It's just really, really, really want to win a cup.
Yeah, they want to win a cup. And I think, I agree with them 100%. I mean, the team is, if not there, they're really damn close to being a cup winner or a team that contends. I think what I'd be aware of if I was in that room is looking too far ahead. I love that they've vocalized the idea that they want to win a Stanley Cup and they have that, but there's so many things that have to fall into place before that, right? So you come to camp ready, then you have a good camp as a group, you bond and you get your game in order as a group and as individuals. Maybe you have to weather the storm with some injuries or some people hit funks. Not everything's going to go well. So I think, it's such a long road, 82 games plus training camp, plus exhibition games, plus the playoffs to hopefully round 4. So I hope they put it into more manageable bites. Otherwise it can seem like a whole lot to swallow, Brownie, when you look at, we're going to win the cup and that's it.
Well, what you do is you put a bullseye on you as well, not just for other teams, but for media, for fans. You look, Vegas didn't have a perfect season from start to finish. You look at Florida. Florida, took them to the final games of the season to even make the playoffs. So if all of a sudden you say cup or bust and mid-November the Oilers have a little slide and you're like, okay, now what's wrong with you? This is a team that's supposed to win the Stanley Cup. And then the pressure from media. And we know what it's like living in Edmonton is 24/7 Edmonton Oilers. So there is pressure from media. And then the fans get into that. So I think it's a big bullseye that you want to back off a bit because what you're preparing for with training camp, you're preparing for exhibition. Then you're preparing for the league play. All of it set up to get you to the playoffs. And what the Oilers have at the start of the season, yes, capable of winning the Stanley Cup. But who's injured or who's healthy or do the players continue to have career years or someone having a down year when you get to playoff time? So the finished product you're going to see for the Edmonton Oilers isn't the team that comes out of training camp. The finished product is going to be the team that you see on April 8th or whatever the last game of the season is. And that's when you start having the expectations. But having said all that, the Edmonton Oilers has the group that's capable of contending. And there was probably, I would say, 8 to 9 teams in the NHL right this year that would be cup or bust. And I think that's a good thought to have in your brain, but it also really sets you up for a lot of critique over the course of the season if thing doesn't go perfect.
You had another interesting comment, guys, about the team learning some lessons. And I think what he's getting at in this clip is about not beating yourselves. And I know Vegas was good, but I believe the Oilers feel like them losing that series was more about the Oilers than it was about Vegas. I got that sense from them doing those media availabilities. I was there when they lost. And then again, in listening to some of what they had to say, here's Draisaitl addressing a little bit of internally the way the Oilers need to look in the mirror and some of what they need to decode.
Sometimes it's just learning learning how not to lose the game instead of learning how to win it. I think we're the best team in the league at really clearly winning a game. I think we're not so great at finding ways to lose games. I think it's just a little bit of maturity. Sometimes you got to go through these pains and tough times to learn from it and move on.
Struddy, what do you make of that?
Well, this is something I've been saying for a long time. I'm not sitting here saying I'm a genius, although I know there are many that say I am.
I think you are.
What it is about, it's about weathering the storm. It's about understanding the game. Where are we at? How's this game feeling? How are we feeling? How's the other team playing? What situation are we in? Like the game awareness. It's 1-0. Let's say you're down 1-0 with 5 minutes to go in the second period. Is that the time to take a massive risk? Something that's really, maybe it's a 10% chance of success. Like, just get through that period, get through it, make through. Now get into the third. You have guys that can score. You have goalies that are going to backstop you. Like, that's the thing that I call it the game awareness, Brownie, that I think the Oilers just don't have enough of. They're always just going head first into everything. Sometimes got to take a step back and say, okay, where are we at? Where's the other team at? Where's our game at? How can we manage this game and manage a win rather than just trying to blow everybody out?
Well, I like your thought, game awareness. I think that's something that we saw throughout the playoffs last year. Is the Oilers got away from their game plan and away from what makes them successful with discipline problems. Leon Draisaitl, to me, is the second best player in the world, and at times he was trying to be a bully, or he's taking penalties off the face-off, or he'd go cross. I mean, things like that. Leon is better on the ice than in the penalty box, and sometimes he got out of his game. And I understand the physicality is a huge part of his game, and he is intimidating. But the after the whistle stuff, to me, at times the entire Oiler group, I think, got a little careless with getting too emotional after the whistles. It's fine to be physical between whistles, but the face washes, the slash. I mean, Leon took penalties after the whistle, after a goal. He went and slashed someone. That changed the complexion of that hockey game. So I think those are the things that the Oilers need to continue to mature with and understand. Vegas played, they were like robots. Nothing seemed to affect them. They just continued to come out shift after shift, do the same thing. Let's get through it. They didn't do anything after the whistle. I think the Oilers need to do a little bit more of that, and they'll be more successful. I think they just seem to get out of their game sometimes to try to bully the other team, maybe play a little arrogant at times, and they don't have to, because the Oilers are skilled enough and good enough to beat you strictly between the whistles.
Yeah, for sure. Let's push it forward to this year, guys. We had a quick little discussion on the last podcast about what the Oilers top six looks like. But I want to dig into this in a more meaningful way, because that in that coach's room, they're not just chucking names up on the board willy-nilly. They're having in-depth discussions about the different players, their assets, what they bring, how their games maybe would play off of one another. So I want to try and simulate that conversation a little bit here. If it were up to us, if we had to decide, take those top six forwards and put them in, two lines that make sense, and here's why it makes sense. What do those top two lines look like? And, you can have Draisaitl and McDavid together. You can split them up, whatever you guys want to do. But Struds, we'll start with you. Take us through what your top six would look like, and we can bat around why.
Well, I think we're going to see different combinations as we go through the year. But to start the year, I'm starting with two. I'm looking at the defensive conscious on each line, or trying to have one. So Nugent Hopkins and Connor Brown, I believe they'll be more of the defensive conscious on any line they are. So I'm automatically splitting those guys up. And then after that, everything kind of falls into place. So I'm going to go Kane, McDavid, and Connor Brown. And assuming this is Connor Brown feeling good about himself. And then I go Nuge, Draisaitl, and Hyman. So that kind of gives, Kane and Hyman are kind of offensive forecheckers and go get the puck, and then they're dogs on the puck. And then again, you have on the opposite wings, you have their counterparts defensively, which is not that they can't score, but Nuge and I believe Connor are a little bit more defensive minded than the other two centers. So that's how I built the lines. And I actually think that's how they're going to start, guys.
Well, you lost me there when you said defensive conscience. I don't know what that is. I thought you just go score. I know there were some guys that played with me that they were back in their own end and looking after the stuff for me, but I had no idea. But honestly, I like the lines you put together there. But to me, I think it's going to be situational. I think it's going to depend what team they play against. There's going to be games where Connor and Leon together are going to be better against that team. There's going to be teams where you're going to play a big center or a very good line, and you're going to want Leon out there with a Nugent Hopkins, and they're going to match up against that other line. So I don't know if there's a perfect set of top six. I think with the Oilers, you can have 7 or 8 different top six lineups that is perfect because you have the 2 best players in the world. So I see what you're saying with those lines, and both those lines would be incredibly effective. And I understand having a defensive, what was it, conscience again on a line, but
conscience. It's when your rear end is facing the other goalie, Rob, not your own. That's kind of unfamiliar for you, but
well, I understood that word. It was the defense part I didn't understand, but I just honestly I think it'll be just a situational thing all season long and not just game by game, but actually period by period. I think the more so the Edmonton Oilers and any other team in the league have the ability to mix up their lines in their top six and still be effective.
Struds, are we letting the new guy off the hook? I didn't hear an answer there from him on what he would do. He sort of danced around it. He tiptoed through the tulips a bit there. Oh, I don't get it. I don't. Brownie, you know what? You'll find out on this pod, man. You got to put a stamp on it. So you're in charge of the lines for night number 1. Opponent doesn't matter. What combination do you like, bud?
All right, I'm going to go big. I'm going to go Kane, Draisaitl, Hyman. I'm going to go Nugent Hopkins, Brown, and McDavid.
Okay, so you flip-flopped Nugent Hopkins and Kane.
Just because of that defensive conscious thing. I'm just going straight against them. I want.
He's still not saying it right. He's saying defensive conscious. No, it's conscience.
I've had a lot of consciences in my head from banging it. So
it's conscious. The difference between defensive conscious is that you're just kind of aware that it exists. Yeah. Conscience means when you don't do it, you feel bad, which I think that's the one you're foreign to.
Yeah, no, I never felt bad. No. I only had so much energy. I used it on one side of the red line, not on the other.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm going to go, and there's no wrong answer here, Brownie, the line you talked about, those would both be really solid lines too. I'm going to lean more towards you, Struds. I've been saying quite a bit that I thought it would be Nugent Hopkins with McDavid and Connor Brown over on the other wing. But the more I think about it, this is going to be a big year for Evander Kane. And when you think about what went well last year, you have to remember that Kane wasn't available for a ton of it. And I think that we've seen some magic between McDavid and Kane at times. There's a real nice combination there. Kane seems to be in the right spot and can really finish with McDavid setting him up. So I could see them looking to rekindle some of that magic that those two have had, and then letting Nugent Hopkins and Draisaitl go to work, or Leon can feed Nugent Hopkins and back and forth, and Hyman can be the digger on that line. So I'm going to lean more towards you, Struds, but I think it works pretty well, quite frankly, in either direction. And I don't know if they'll play McDavid and Draisaitl together a lot this year. Every off season, we talk about the lines and who's going to play with Connor and who's going to play with Leon, and then they end up playing a whole pile together. If that is the matrix, Brownie, who is the player that you would pick that you think would be a good fit to go on the line with those two? So for whatever reason, opponent-based, you decide it's McDavid and Draisaitl together tonight. Who do you like with them over on that other side?
Well, I can't really say a lot about Connor Brown because I don't know how he's going to fit in with those guys yet. And he's coming back from injury.
Yeah.
If you want to go all world, you throw Evander Kane with those two. And then you've got a very good defensive line with Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, and Brown. Or Dylan Holloway if you want to bump him up at times during the season. To me, if you go nuclear, and that's the way they always talk about it, my nuclear line is McDavid, Draisaitl, and Evander Kane. I don't know if there's any line or defensive pairing in the National Hockey League that can compete with them over a 60-minute stretch. Now, your second line's not as strong, but that line alone is capable of winning you a hockey game.
Yeah. That can be a 3-4 point night for those type of guys on that line, against the right. And it causes matchup issues. And I think you touched on that. I'll look at from the defensive side. If you load up that top line, it's going to tax any number one defensive pair, right? Like that's just a fact. And then that should open up opportunities for the other groups, which would be Nugent Hopkins line. I though, guys, I'd really try to stay away from loading those two guys up. I think that when you get into the playoffs, yeah, I think spreading them out makes more sense. Just you want to have two lines that can really take care of scoring, two lines that can match up against anybody. And I'd like to see Leon take on a bit of not a shutdown role, but a role where he's like, I'm going to get 2 points tonight, and whoever I play against is going to get none. 5-on-5 at least, 5-on-5. And that's an attitude that it's going to require a lot of work to play that way, because to play the full 200-foot game that was required to take that on is hard. And I'm thinking of an Anze Kopitar. You maybe get less points, but you sure make it nasty in a long night for other teams' top centers. And we've seen him do this before. Mm-hmm. And if he's able to do that, man, that just opens Connor wide open just to run wild.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The one that I would like to see, if he's playing well and the play isn't dying on his stick and he's making plays and playing with confidence, I'd love to see Dylan Holloway get a look with those two, right? Because he can skate. He's got some offensive ability that they want to bring to the forefront. I don't know that it'll happen, but I'd really like to see it, because then you think about the possibilities that exist. If you can slide Holloway into that top six with those two, now you can go like Nugent Hopkins in the middle with Hyman on one side and Evander Kane on the other. Now you got Connor Brown on a third line playing with like Ryan McLeod and Warren Fogle, right? So you think about just the way that can beef up your top nine by moving better players down, by moving Holloway up a little bit. If there's a way that he could handle that and get some of that sugar time with those guys and get a little confidence going, I think that'd be a great look.
I agree. And I'm a big fan of Holloway. I think he's Evander Kane light. And I think he's got huge upside. The one problem that the Oilers have with players coming in that are offensive is, as an offensive player, you gain confidence in points. You get points in the NHL on the power play. There's no room on the power play. I mean, Evander Kane barely plays power play time because he's on the second unit, and there's really not a second unit. So a Holloway, to gain traction offensively, is going to have to get some ice time with Connor and Leon, because he's not going to get the power play points. He's not going to get that instant gratification of going out in the PP and tipping one in, and all of a sudden you feel good about yourself. So I think, as you said, Ryan, is you need to give an offensive player a chance to get his footing at this level and be an offensive player. And the only way Holloway is going to do that is, the third line is going to score, but you're going to have to put him with Connor and Leon at times, because he's capable of being a good offensive player in the NHL.
Strud's last word.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I agree with you totally, Brown. I think that if the team is really committed to trying to win, I think they got to cut down that top unit of power play time, maybe cap it at 75 seconds and try to get a change out there. Because if you're Connor Brown, you're not even going to they won't even let you watch the power play because you're not getting close to it. And you're trying to get so if you bump him down the third line 5-on-5, his totals go down big time, right? Same with Dylan Holloway. So, it's a lot to think about when you're the captain, but how can I get everyone involved? How can I make everyone feel good? I think your point of having the second power play getting some action is huge. Even if you want to say, okay, well, we'll leave Connor out there or McDavid out there for the whole time, at least have 4 other guys go out there and let them try to get their beaks wet.
Not happening. Draisaitl and McDavid will not be coming off the ice before a minute 50 of that.
But if you want to win, if you want to win, buddy, then you got to get everybody going.
Did the power play get in their way at all? I can't imagine, Struds. They have had so much success with those guys eating up such a high percentage of that time. The other 3, I'm with you. But those 2, they're not coming off the ice. There's no way that Gully is going to be like, yeah.
Well, you initiate it. The players initiate it. Initiate with the players. The players are the one that have to make the call.
Oh, man. But the one thing,
really committed to winning.
The one thing, though, in their power play, what makes the Oilers' power play so successful, if you're a penalty killing unit and against any other team, if you get through the first minute and you don't get scored on, you're like, okay, our best penalty killers are leaving. We kept them off the board. And all of a sudden, against the Oilers, your second unit comes out there. What do you mean? How are they still on the ice and they're still fresh?
Exactly.
And again, they have the best power play in the history of the National Hockey League. I don't see them changing.
It's a great theory, Struds, until the first time you're down a goal and on the power play in the third period. And then all that crap goes out the window and those guys empty the tank. And
But those are
Leon
special
slumped over heading
circumstances.
back to the bench because he took the whole 2 minutes.
Well, the thing is, they usually draw the penalty, so they're out there for 45 seconds. They
Yeah.
play the full 2 minutes, sometimes get extended afterwards, and now you're like, that was a 4-minute and 22-second shift.
Listen, guys, at some point this year, I'll leave you with this. You're going to hear
Yes.
about the Oilers talk about getting everyone involved in the game. And just let's look at the minutes when we see the third or the fourth line playing 6 minutes a night. Let's just keep that in mind when we're saying everyone has to be involved. That's just old Uncle Struddy nailed it September 8th or whatever
All
day
right,
it is.
Zuby, mark that down. Mark that down.
That in that
Brownie,
diary.
great stuff, Brownie. I know you'll be back in town here shortly. Thanks for doing this. We'll check in again early next week for another podcast. Thank you, my friend.
Sounds good. See you guys.
All right, talk to you soon. Folks, one of our newest sponsors is Long Shots. Just a fantastic outfit. They got locations here in Sherwood Park and in South Edmonton as well. We're going to tell you a little bit more about them. A quick commercial break. We'll be back in less than 30 seconds. And Cory Sarich will join us to talk a little bit about the Battle of Alberta and the Calgary Flames. Long Shots Golf is the destination for both golf enthusiasts and sports fans. Top-of-the-line TrackMan simulators provide a highly entertaining and accurate golf experience, while a full-service sports bar loaded with big screens and scratch kitchen make it a truly unique destination. They have locations in Sherwood Park and Edmonton. Experience the best indoor golf and sports bar in town. Visit longshots.ca. That's longshots with a Z.ca. All right, and a big thanks to Long Shots for coming on board. They are our studio sponsor this year, sponsoring the studio here in Sherwood Park, and also we'll do some on-location stuff with them as well. And it is time to get to takeaways, brought to you by our good friends at Martin Motorsports, your one-stop shop for marine and power sports recreation, whether it's on land, on snow, on water, on the road. Begin your adventure with Martin Motorsports. Top-of-the-line brands. I was in the showroom a couple of weeks ago. Struds, we got to get out with the Martin Motorsports crew, because there's nothing but fun when they bring the toys out to play. Visit martinmotorsports.ca as we head down to Calgary and check in with our buddy Cory Sarich. Cory, how are you, my man?
Doing well, thanks. How are you guys this morning?
Good, good. We're fired up and excited to have podcast season rocking and rolling again. I want you two to chit-chat for a minute, because I'm just quickly going to pull up your stats. I'm going to pull up Strud's stats, so I know who I should be chirping here, and you know, which I need to know which was the better defenseman here. So I'm just going to pull it up here, but I don't know, Struds. You're the alpha on this podcast. Are you stepping aside for Cory, or what's the drill?
Well, I mean, I don't think. I mean, he played a lot of games, a very good player, but I mean, it wasn't like either of us were like offensive juggernauts. It's kind of like bragging about who the tallest hobbit is.
So 55 career points for Struds in 674 games. Sorry, Cory.
Not bad.
158 career points for Cory Sarich in 969 games. So I think maybe offensively, Struds, can you admit that he might have had just the tiniest little slight edge on you?
Well, there were very few players I played with or against that have a bit of an offensive edge on me. Let's be honest. I wasn't allowed to touch the puck even in warm up.
Cory, any recollections of Jason Strudwick?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Any recollections of Struds, Cory?
Oh yeah, definitely. Probably wouldn't be the first guy I'd choose to scrap if I was out there on the ice. That's for sure. He'd be a lot further down on my list. I'll tell you that much.
He threw muffins. Come on. Hey, Struds, like, you made those things look good because you threw a lot of them really quick, but really, how much was behind those?
No, very little damage. Very little damage. It was fine. It was fine out there. That's when I knew I was going to get scored on when I was sitting in the penalty box.
Yeah, no kidding. Cory, we want to dive in on the Calgary Flames a little bit with you. I mean, you look at the way things went for them last season. So they were fifth in the division, 93 points, 18-point drop-off from the year before. We all saw what happened, the big trades that had to be made. Huberdeau struggles. It seemed messy with the head coach. And Craig Conroy comes in, Ryan Huska comes in. They're going to try and change the tone and the feel because they haven't changed a lot of personnel. So let me ask you this. How much do you think the change in tone and feel that is sure to be there with Huska and Conroy, how much of a difference in the standings do you think that can make?
It's going to be tough because I think first and foremost, it's going to come down to who's going to score goals around here again. I hate to say it, but there's been changes in feel if you look at the list of Calgary Flames head coaches in the past little while, past decade or so. They've tried this before. You had a guy like Bob Hartley that was in here a long time ago. Bit of mind games being played there, and then they bring in Glenn Gulletson, players coach. Didn't go so well. Then you bring in a tough guy again like Bill Peters, who gets replaced by Jeff Ward. Not a lot of NHL experience as a head coach, but should be a player's coach. Now they've had to deal with Daryl Sutter and now replaced by Ryan Huska. There's a pattern here where they've tried on multiple types of coaches. I think some that fit into a category of the tough coach, the guy that pushes buttons, the guy that makes it difficult for players, or is maybe an old school coach. So I don't know if feel in the dressing room is going to be enough, but I think it definitely puts the onus on the players. You guys have no excuses this year. You're going to have to come out. You're going to have to perform. And Ryan Huska's a super level-headed guy. He's had success at WHL level. He's got lots of coaching experience at the AHL level, and now he's going to get his crack. I think it all falls straight on the shoulders of the Calgary Flames, the players, to get this job done by themselves. So they're going to have to figure things out inside that locker room.
Struds, what do you think of that idea? Change in feel and how much of a difference it can make?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was there for one practice last year, and it looked like a dark cloud over top of the team, and it's hard to operate in that. But now if that is truly the issue, or how was the issue, and you eliminate it, now you got to just go and play and let it fly. And I think it's easier said than done, because I look at this team. I thought last year they looked slow. They didn't have enough team speed, and maybe even a little bit old. So I guess, Sarge, when you look at this group, this team, and let's say they are competing for a playoff spot into the new year, but they have significant challenges with UFAs coming up, with Lindholm and Hannafin, a ton of their D. I think there's only 2 D signed for the year after. If they're in a playoff hunt, can Craig Conroy, who's already talked about not wanting to have this situation, can he really trade these guys away, or will he keep them kind of like your own rentals, and maybe like what Columbus did a couple of years ago, maybe even add and try to kind of make the playoffs, but really with probably not much success happening in the playoffs? Like, how can Craig manage all this and a fan base?
Yeah, it's not going to be an easy job. And I think if the Calgary Flames are in a playoff spot, that'll be a win in itself. After what went down here last year, there's going to be a lot of hurdles to overcome. You got some of your top players like Jonathan Huberdeau coming off of an awful season. He's going to have to completely flip things. They've got to win back the fan base. This group here, it started to slip at the end of last year, just in comments from people all throughout the community. What's the identity of the Calgary Flames? That kind of disappeared last year. You lose Kachuk, you lose Goudreau. It was a team that was really kind of figuring out and learning how to function defensively and turn a little bit of defensive play into a catalyst for their offense. They used to move up and down the ice as a group. Last year, this group seemed completely disjointed. So they're going to have to, first and foremost, get back to basics. And Struds, like, if they're in a playoff spot, I think you've got to move assets. I don't care if it maybe pulls you out of a race for the playoffs, if the fan base doesn't like it. I just think that Craig Conroy's hand is going to be forced. You can't sit around.
You're talking about guys that have made it clear they're not going to be re-signing, right? When you're talking about that, it's not losing guys as unrestricted free agents.
Yeah, we're talking about like Michael Backlund. We're talking about some of your defensemen back there, Noah Hannafin. These guys have good value right now, and I watched it personally when I was here. I love Jerome McGinley as a teammate, but everyone has a time in their career when their value is at its peak, and a team might have to make a hard decision, and they have to do, I think, what is team first. And you've got to move guys, and you hang on for too long, you don't get enough value back for these guys, and I think that just really hurts you long term.
Yeah. some decisions to make. Huberdeau is, to me, in terms of turning things back in the right direction, you addressed who's going to be scoring goals and putting up offense around here. That's why he was brought in. He had the massive offensive season, change of scenery, and the drop-off was like nothing we've ever seen. Unbelievable level, all the way down to 55 points, I think it was. I wonder how much it's about a new location. I wonder how much it was about an uncomfortable situation with a head coach. Do you think that, Jonathan Huberdeau, with the changes that they've made, has a chance to not necessarily get back to the 110 or 115 points he had, but that the factors that they've changed in his world will make enough of a difference to get him feeling right?
Yeah, I think you got to give him. I think you got to give him for sure this season, right? It's not easy. I mean, I remember being a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning for 7 years. It's kind of where I cut my teeth in the league. It's all I knew, and then all of a sudden I'm up here in Calgary. It wasn't an easy situation because we had played them in the playoffs, so people already probably had a sour taste in their mouth about me. You're living up to expectations of a huge contract. People don't realize too, as a player, like the little things that go on in your life that factor into, like when you have your first kids, your first child, what a wrinkle that throws into your life, and you're figuring that out while trying to perform at the highest level in front of, hundreds of thousands of people who all eyes are on you. So Canada's not an easy market. I said last year when he came in, Huberdeau, I'm like, can he stand and the pressure cooker that is the Canadian market? It's not an easy place to play hockey. It's a completely different adjustment. Your time gets chewed up actually away from the rink with a lot of other expectations too, because you're in Canada and it's a hockey hungry base, and just all those things, they factor in, which people don't often consider. So you got to give them a little bit of time to make an adjustment.
Corey, what about in net? You look at they've got obviously the two guys that are there, Markstrom and Vladar, but they've got a young guy, Dustin Wolf, who's kind of done everything right in the minors. And you look at the age of Markstrom. Do they need to find a way to get this guy some NHL games, or is he just kind of keep doing what he's doing in the AHL?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to balance as well, right? You've got your two guys, and you kind of thought that Markstrom should be your starter, and Vladar had a really great stretch last season, and then when we all thought that he might get kind of handed the ball to run with from when Markstrom was struggling, didn't do the greatest job. So he's still got some figuring out to do as a backup that maybe wants to push for a number one goaltender. But here you got this young guy, Dustin Wolf, who played otherworldly down in the minors. They had a really solid team last year, and he's one of those guys that how long can you wait? That's always, I think, the biggest challenge for these teams is when you have a prospect that you think is ready, but you're all of a sudden deep in that position. How do you mix in a guy? How do you take those minutes away from Vladar, who's done such a great job of earning his spot? Markstrom, if you believe in him and he's going to be your essential number one, well, you've got to get him his minutes to get him there. So it's going to be another difficult decision on where do you piece Wolf in, or do you just start as it is, and if injuries happen, then he gets his chance. I don't know what you present to this young guy to keep him focused, because everybody around here is chomping at the bit. They want Dustin Wolf to get a shot with the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch, boy. I mean, last year, they almost squeezed in. Despite all the issues that they had and how crazy things got, they almost found a way to get there. Be interesting to see if they can fight their way into a playoff spot this season, and if they can piece some things together and get enough pointed in the right direction that they find their way there. Corey, really appreciate you doing this, buddy. Will you come back again? We'd love to have you on a little bit more often this season if we can.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just kicking around here with not much going on, so I could probably make some time.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds like Struds. That's basically, you two are living the same post-life career, it sounds like. Just not a ton going on. Hey, Struddy?
Pretty quiet. Drive the kids to school, pick them up, cut the lawn, walk the dog, pick up the dog's poop. Pretty busy days.
Well, the biggest change for me could be this year if my son makes a certain level of hockey. I will not be coaching for the first time since Tibbetts. And you know what? I'm kind of looking forward to it. So
nice.
I'm cheering for him. Get out there.
You can
get after it.
You can sit in the stands and complain about the coaching. That's the dream.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna be an expert at that. Let me tell you.
You don't get on the refs too, do you? I feel like do you get on the refs a little from the stands? No, you keep it quiet.
Feel if I get on the refs, that empowers the players on our team and then the families to get on the refs. So I never get into the refs.
Leave the refs alone. To all hockey parents out there listening, leave the damn referees alone.
Then half of them are young kids trying to figure their stuff out. Give them a break.
There you go. Yeah. I like it. This
sure.
PSA brought to you by Martin Motorsports. And this segment brought to you by Martin Motorsports as well. Corey, thanks, buddy. We'll check in again really soon. That is Cory Sarich joining us from Calgary with his analysis on the upcoming season for the Flames. See you, buddy. All right, Zuby, time for you to check back in because it is now time for, I don't know, are we calling this our favorite segment on the podcast? I feel like it might be. I feel like it just might be. Now, we have named it Struddy Says, where we dive into the big, gigantic cranium of Jason Strudwick. But I don't know, Struddy, we're thinking a rename is in order of this thing. So we will take some suggestions. If you want to send some suggestions in on the stream of what we can rename our Struddy Says segment. I'm not saying we're going to take your suggestions, but you could see this thing renamed over the next little bit here. So I don't know, Struddy, what do you think, man? Like we were batting a few things around.
Yeah, there's a lot of text messages flying around. I'm actually getting to my maximum early on my text messages in September, so I might have to start to send emails again. But yeah, I'm more than open to a name change. I've got a couple ideas. I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks out there.
Absolutely. And Struddy Says, as we will call it for now, brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. If you're tired of sanding, staining, painting, staring at your old fence or deck, and you're kind of dreading all the work that you know is involved with it, well, DLR can definitely help you. Beautiful fencing and decking products. You put them in, they last for decades. Super high quality. Check out dlrvinylproducts.ca. Struds.
I don't get a lot done. I just make a lot of noise and run around. When you make a mistake or dating girlfriend, we have a good, healthy relationship, and I'm not bragging. I'm just kind of setting this up. And I feel like I know her pretty well. We've been together. We've traveled together. We've had kids together. We've had a tough time having kids. All this different stuff we've had. It's been pretty good. And from the very beginning, I've been pretty open about my taste in music. I think everyone knows how I feel about Neil Diamond and ABBA. But when maybe a little more understated is my love for Nick Lachey and 98 Degrees. I love 98 Degrees. I've always liked the song, The Hardest Thing. I don't know why. I haven't had a lot of heartache in my relationships with the opposite sex. I didn't have a lot of massive breakups or blow-ups. It was pretty normal. But for some reason, that whole song about how, if you don't know the song, the hardest thing, it's a little bit about a kind of a guy who's in love with someone else, but he's still with his girlfriend. Like, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty emotional. So I've always put it on. I was always on a playlist, and I'll play it. I'll just sing. So about a couple of days ago, I was with my wife driving the car, and I was just singing my heart out. Just me and Nick Lachey, window down, shirt off, just loving it. The last end of summer in this song. And my wife stops the song, turns it down. She's like, "No, I don't really like this song." I'm like, "What?" I said, "We've been playing this song for 20 years. I've been singing my heart." She's like, "Yeah. I knew how much you like it, but I can't take it anymore. I don't like this song." And I was just blown away. I didn't know what to say. A little part of me died at that moment. And so, guys, I guess I'm looking for advice from you and the listeners. Like, what's next? What's my wife going to tell me next? That she doesn't actually like steak, or that, she doesn't like the way I do my hair, or maybe it doesn't like my tight jeans. Like, what else is about to fall? So my world got rocked a little bit because I thought that was locked in. Our common love for 98 Degrees and the song The Hardest Thing. Boys, help me out.
I don't even know where to start with this, Zuby. Like, first of all, Struds, you need to get better taste in music. I think if that is your starting point, I think your life is going to improve significantly. Like 98 Degrees and Nick Lachey.
Oh, Nick Lachey. I fell in love with
Whatever.
him. He was with Jessica Simpson and had a show. And I didn't, she's a
I
good-looking lady and
watched.
talented. But I love Nick.
watched.
He was such a down-to-earth guy. You must know this song, Zuby. The Hardest Thing by 98 Degrees.
You know what? I'm more of a Backstreet Boys guy. I gotta say, I'm not in too deep on 98 Degrees of that era boy band. So you're not getting much support. You're not getting much support from us here in that.
Okay.
In that regard, my friend.
Let's just go over some of the lyrics here, buddy.
It's emotional.
Fate has a place and time, so you can get on with your life. I've got to be cruel to be kind, like Dr. Zhivago. All my love I'll be sending, and you will never know there can be no happy ending. What? How is this the theme of your life? How is this the song that gets you shirt off, belting away lyrics in the car? What is it about this that resonates with you? This is drivel garbage.
No. So you have to understand it. He's with his girlfriend, but there's a third party involved. And he loves the third party. So he's in his mind, he's telling, I've got to break up with my girlfriend. I've got to be cruel to be kind and move her out so I can be with the number one that I actually love. Like, it's quite a tale of woe and love. So anyways, I guess.
And you wonder why your wife wasn't thrilled with it. She probably listened to the lyrics for 5 seconds and was like, why is this resonating with you so much?
Good point. That's a fair point. But this is 20 years plus. We've loved this song. So let's just get past the song. We can all agree it's a great song. But what about the idea of your wife finding out something that is like, she just told me something that it rocked my world, that she doesn't like that song. I thought this was a staple of our common love.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, Zuby. I don't know, man. This whole thing is rancid to me. I'm Team Shona on this one.
I honestly, I'm at a loss for words, which is, I think, fairly rare. I'm on Strud's team as far as having that dropped on you after that long. Then you're asking yourself, exactly, what's the next thing you're going to drop on me? I completely understand that part of it, and I would be concerned.
I had a little bit of a similar circumstance early on in my relationship with Randine, where just in some basic discussion, I discovered she had never seen Top Gun. Never seen it. And I was like, what? What do you mean you have not seen Top? I mean, I think we might have been out for dinner, and I was like, check. And we immediately went home. And it's kind of hard to find, by the way. It's not the easiest movie to just find. And I made her sit down and watch it. And I actually performed the theme song for her before the movie, just so she understood just the gravity of the whole thing. And she watched Top Gun. And when it was over, she was like, that was absolutely horrendous. Like, it was just, she had no love for Top Gun at all. And Struds, in a similar way, I was probably reconsidering things just a little bit somewhere in my mind.
Well, that's it. That's the thing. You got these little nuggets get dropped on you. You don't feel like you don't know about your wife. Like, for instance, my wife no longer buys regular milk. We just drink almond milk. Like, did I sign up for that 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember this happening. So what's next? Beyond Meat for steaks? Like, I get, people change and evolve, and maybe I have to evolve and change more with the times. But man, it's just little things are dropping here and there.
You just need to revamp your entire taste in music, because that is the center of this entire problem. That was Struddy Says, or I don't know. We'll figure out a name. Send us your suggestions. We'll. Although Zuby, you did that great animation with Struddy Says on it. It would be a shame to lose that. You put a lot of work into that, but
that's why I'm pushing so hard to retain the name.
To retain the name,
because I don't know if some of these other names we have are going to work within that animation that I've built, which is, to me, it's my favorite part of the segment.
Yeah, well, that's why you get paid the big bucks, buddy. All right, our final segment of the podcast this season, when we are live streaming, will be Ask Us Anything. It's a chance for people who are following along on the live stream to fire their questions towards Struds and I. Zuby tracks them during the podcast. And we'll present now. So, Zuby, and by the way, we thank you for those who joined us on YouTube and on Twitter. Zuby, what did the masses have for us?
We got a couple of good Oiler questions here. I thought JL said, are we going to finally see a motivated Warren Foegele to have a good start to a season since it's his contract year?
Ooh, Struds?
I mean, they are motivating times. I think it's kind of a perfect storm for Warren. This team is poised to hopefully have a good regular season, which is usually good for everyone on the team. And then a lot of people tend to kind of double down in the playoffs, and you can make extra money if you have a good playoff run. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think he's been unmotivated, but I think that he could benefit from where the team's at and where it's going to be. So I think he's a guy that I have my eye on, along with Holloway up front, about what they can bring consistently to this group this year.
He and Holloway could be an interesting dynamic, the two of them, because they both skate fast. Holloway is not afraid to throw some hits. I like Warren Fogel's game a lot better when he's finishing checks. He's one of those guys that gets there fast enough that he can expose people and he can really wear down defensemen. But there are a lot of nights where he chooses not to play that way, and it's a choice to not play that way. Yeah. I think he needs to have that playoff kind of, finishing the body type intensity a little bit more often, because I think it's going to help his team win more games if he can bring that intensity level more often. I know people are going to think I'm a Neanderthal, always talking about wanting guys to hit more, but for guys that skate fast and are big, you might as well, since you get yourself there on time. What else, Zuby?
Jaden Vaudrin wondering, should we be worried about a sophomore slump with Stuart Skinner this year? Or maybe a phrase it too is, how worried are you guys about a sophomore slump?
He had an amazing year last year. I mean, being an all-star in your rookie year I think that's amazing. Right? I mean, let's just call it as it is. I think, though, what they're going to be looking for is an uptick from Campbell. I don't think the year could go as badly year two as it did in year one for Campbell. So I'd expect him to be better. Even if Stu, things get a little bit soft for Stu, or a little bit softer, I think that Campbell will pick him up. But let's not forget, usually the second NHL is easier in a lot of ways because you know what to expect. Now, I can't speak from a goalie, but I can definitely speak as a skater. So I think that the second year will be better for him just as far as knowing what's going on. But I also look for an uptick from Campbell, which may take some heat off of Stu.
Yeah, it creates that competition, right? Like if Jack Campbell plays well this year and Stuart Skinner finds himself in a really legitimate battle for starts, like you got another guy that's pushing, another guy that's done it before, another guy that's found his game, exercise those demons, and he's just ready to rock and roll. I think that'll be good for Stuart Skinner because now you're engaging in the competitive juices and the internal competition, and you're in a fight for playing time. If Campbell's game really, really struggles again and Stuart has to be the guy, or the team is in a really, really tough spot, I think maybe he's a little bit more subject to the nerves and some of those issues. Put that guy in a competition, and I think it'll bring the best out of him. I wouldn't think that a slump is necessarily in order. I agree with you, Struds. I think he'll be pushed more.
I'm not sure that there's like an arc, as clear of an arc for goalies in that kind of with players. You kind of have like rookie year, sophomore slump, bounce back, and then fourth year sometimes is like the breakout. Yeah. I'm not sure if there's like a comparable arc for goalies that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I think it depends on the individual, right? I think like Stuart Skinner is a calm, rational guy that is as thoughtful as you'll find in terms you interview the guy, the way he thinks things. He's not afraid to be honest about things. Like Struds, to me, he has the right disposition to deal with being a goaltender in a market like this. At least what he's displayed to us so far. And maybe it's honeymoon phase because last year it was like everything was great and he really never hit the skids till the playoffs where it came off the rails a little bit, but it did for a lot of the team. But he's the right disposition for me to be able to avoid that.
He is. And I think that the message from the team needs to be, listen, you don't have to do this by yourself. Like you don't have to be the savior, right? Just do your job. Just be Stuart Skinner. Just do your job, stop pucks, and we'll do our part, right? And it's a little bit different when you think back to when Montreal Canadiens made that run with Carey Price. Carey had to be all world, but he'd been in the league a long time. He had that pedigree. He was ready and able to do that. But for now, this young guy, he doesn't need to do that. Just do your job. Just do your job. Just be yourself, and then we'll take care of the rest. I think that's the message because you don't want him to think he has to be all world. That I think is when things kind of go sideways for young, or can go sideways for young players and goaltenders included.
Yeah, 100%. Big thanks to our digital sponsor of the Inbox. That is Weiss Johnson. They've got 45 years in the business. So If you're in need of a new furnace, a garage heater, an air conditioner, hot water tank, or if you need servicing for any of those elements, Weiss Johnson is definitely the place to go. Edmonton's #1 choice for heating, air conditioning, and plumbing services. Dennis and the crew over there, great customer service. I have their products in my house, and they always take great care of us. That is Weiss Johnson.
Weiss Johnson, Weiss Johnson, whoa.
Little slow on the jingle there, Zuby. You can roll the music, though, because we're ready to wrap up the podcast. That'll put an end to season 3, episode number 2. We're getting chirped, Zuby. I'm not sure if it's you or me, but somebody misspelled Corey Sarich. I think Cory versus Corey. So you either did it on the stream or I did it on Twitter. But we need to hire a full-time spell checker here on the pod.
Well, which one is it? Y or EY? I spelled it with a Y.
Let me check.
I swear I looked it up first.
Isn't it
Oh, did you?
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, let me check here. I mean, we got to get to the bottom of these mistakes. Yeah. It's a Y, Cory.
Yeah, that was his lower third in the show.
So I screwed it up on Twitter then, clearly.
Wow.
That's what I'm going to go with.
Apology needed.
Sorry, Corey. We apologize. Thanks for coming on with us. Sorry we butchered your name. Look forward to having him again. Thanks for joining us, folks. Thanks for your downloads and your subscriptions. We'll drop a couple more podcasts next week as well as we hurtle towards training camp. Big thanks to all of our sponsors as well. Look forward to chatting again soon. Cheers.